Welcome, everybody, and good evening to all of you. My name's Fahim Shakur. Welcome to another edition of the MEDtalkx radio and website on YouTube and both Facebook Live. The studio and the WhatsApp numbers are as follows for those of you who wish to join us and ask questions. The studio number is 01282 723 455. I repeat, 01282 723 455. The WhatsApp number is 075 227 455. Any questions or queries about tonight's show, please do send them through. I'm delighted to say that tonight is a special for our series. We have been doing a lot of medical themed topics every week on a Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. But tonight is basically a women's hour, so you'll hear very little from me, I hope. And to introduce our lovely guest tonight, my co-host, Dr. Mehran Javid.
Thank you, Fahim, and welcome everyone. It's that time of the week again on a Tuesday evening. So please do check us out on YouTube. We've also got some fancy polo shirts. We are 3 weeks in, so if you do please put a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel as well. So without further ado, we've got some really important esteemed guests on the show. I will start from left to right. So I'd like to introduce Asma Khan, who moved from Calcutta to Cambridge in 1991 and currently resides in London with a husband and 2 boys. She also has a PhD in British Constitutional Law at King's College London and is also the chef and owner of Darjeeling Express, a restaurant she opened in 2017. Asma's Indian Kitchen was a winner in the UK category for food publishing and Indian cuisine and the Gourmet World Cookbook Awards, and she's also the first British chef to feature in Netflix's Emmy-nominated Chef's Table. So thank you again, Asma, for joining this discussion.
Thank you.
And our next esteemed guest is Shigufta. You may have recognized her from our previous show on domestic violence, but in addition to that, she's a leader in the community and certainly apt for this discussion. So she is the CEO of the Wish Centre in Blackburn, and she also delivers training on domestic abuse, honor-based violence, as well as female genital mutilation, both regionally and nationally. In addition to that, she has a small task of being the presenter on Radio Lancashire with John Gilmore every Saturday, 6 to 10 a.m. So thank you, Shigufta.
A pleasure to be here.
And lastly, Dr. Siema Iqbal, who graduated from University of Manchester, just like myself, but a few years ahead, mind you. She works as a hospital doctor in the Northwest region, and she continues to practice as a GP in Greater Manchester. So she also is very much engaged in charitable activities and also launched the Doctor Aesthetics in 2014, whilst in addition to being a busy mom to 2 boys. So everyone seems to be having 2 boys here.
Thank you for that introduction and giving my age away at the same time. Thank you for that.
So I guess without further ado, let's start with yourself, Asma. So we can't avoid the American election. What are your reflections on what's happened
in America? I think it's very interesting. I think that this was the most ugly face that you saw of racism. And, it's a relief that it's over. That's all I can say. Because I think that it was the most polarized example. Because a bit like what happened in this country with Brexit and the referendum, the genie was out of the bottle, where because your leaders, the people you looked up to, were openly saying racist things and getting away with it, it became okay to be racist. It became okay to hate people because of their religion, their faith, their gender, their sexuality. And I think that this was really, really quite difficult to watch and very painful as a person of color, as a Muslim, as an immigrant, to see how nasty it got. And I'm very relieved because I think that it's a great outcome. And, even though I know that, Trump hasn't conceded, and this is, I'm a constitutional lawyer, so I know that, in America, this is a painful, lame duck presidency that is the most vicious 1 month, that will be dragged on. And we will all be in tears by the time it ends. But it's still just a relief. I mean, just the sheer relief that, the outcome is something progressive. It seems like, the healing can start.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Shigufta, but does this, obviously with Kamala Harris demonstrating, the achievements, I guess, of immigration, being half Jamaican descent, half Indian descent, what kind of message does that portray?
I think for me, it's really positive to see women in roles like that. I think if you're growing up, if you're a young person, if you're a girl, if you're a college student, if you're a university student, and you look at people like Kamala, people who have achieved something and have shown that despite the challenges that they face, there is a possibility that you can achieve a high office like a vice president's office. Then it gives hope and it gives hope to young girls, basically. They see somebody like them reflected in a position of power. And I think that in itself is really empowering. So it's not about whether you agree with somebody's politics or whether you agree with their opinions or what they stand for. I think to see women in that position, especially women of color, is very empowering for young girls. It gives them hope.
Excellent. And Siema, your thoughts on America and having a female vice president, hopefully?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the two viewpoints that we've just heard from Asma and Shigufta. Seeing women in a place of a position of power is empowering, and it sets a good example, especially women of color. For me, I think I respect the opinions, but I think to say that, everything's going to be okay now and the healing can start. I think what Trump did was shine a light and just make it easier for people to be racist. I think the racism's still there. It's entrenched in society, and the people that are racist are still there. Perhaps it'll go under the covers again, but it is definitely still there. And I think with Kamala Harris becoming vice president, it does set a good example. But for me, I find it difficult to cheerlead her because she is of a particular color. I feel that it needs to go a bit deeper than that, and we shouldn't be judging her based on her color, because how are we any different than to people that are racist who just see the color and say, well, that's it? I think her policies and what she stands for and what changes she will bring, for me, will mean a lot more. But I do understand. I also know, to see Asma, who has broken the ceiling with her amazing restaurant, which I've read so much about and I hope to eat in one day, and she's leading the way, and also Shigufta, who's in the media. To be a woman of color presenting your own show in the media is not an easy task either. So there's lots of female brown doctors, so I'm not going to talk about myself, but I'm just saying that these two, you've broken ceilings, and to see you in those positions is amazing. But I think it's not just because of your color, it's because of what you stand for and what you've done and your workplaces and some of the things you stand for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it lends itself quite well. Yeah, Shigufta, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just saying it absolutely does, and I agree with what you've just said, Siema. I think for me, it's about seeing people like Kamala and others like her in a position where I think sometimes maybe young girls growing up might feel that this is something that's out of our reach. It's not a possibility. But I completely agree with you. We need to wait and see what the policies are and how it all sort of pans out, if you will.
Yeah, because otherwise we could say, well, Priti Patel is a woman of color, in a position, and if I had daughters, which I don't, I certainly wouldn't want my daughter to aspire to be Priti Patel.
Strong words to start the show with.
Well, and that's based on some of the actions and policies that she has enacted and some of the things that she said. Yes, she's a woman of color, and she's in a position that many would aspire to be. But I would not. I would be. It's not a great example for me. And if we're basing it on the argument of, well, she's a woman of color in a position of power, well, it doesn't work for me. That does not work.
Asma, what are your reflections to that? I guess being a woman, as well as being a woman of color, does that bring any specific qualities that perhaps a woman of leadership can contribute?
The thing is that the difference between Priti Patel and Kamala and people like me and the other two presenters is that we're very aware of our culture, and we know we represent a heritage So when we speak and we, are working with the community, there is an awareness of who we are. And of course, there are people in our community who are in positions of power who seem to have lost that connection and kind of are confused about who they are. Now, Kamala Harris is interesting because, she has always talked about her heritage, and that is a significant part. And most significantly, she's the first female vice president. And that is a huge thing, because in a country that could not stomach, voting for, Clinton last time, I think this is significant that, they have got a vice president now who is a female. These are very big steps. And I think that, yes, it is not just, a rubber stamp, I'm very aware, sometimes when you are invited to places to speak, or people invite you to be on panels, that you think, I'm the single brown face. They're taking a box here, because when you call someone like me, you took several boxes, immigrant, Muslim, female. There is tokenism, but there's also real representation, but there's also a voice of the community. And I think the difference with the current, I would still call her a vice president, even though it's not official as yet, is that she has often spoken about color and spoken about race and, what she symbolizes. So, I think that we shouldn't get confused with someone like Preeti Patel, who has said openly that she doesn't think that she's brown or Indian. God knows what she thinks she is. Some kind of a human being, possibly. But so I don't think that comparison is real. But there are women who don't represent their community, who don't see themselves as part of a community, who are not concerned, Look at what these two are doing. Clearly for them, giving back into their community is very important. But they're both professionals as well. And I think you can, I think this is incredible that, as a woman, I feel I can wear several hats at different times. I've said this many times, that please don't put labels on me. I will be who I want to be at any time I want to be. But I'm very consciously aware all the time of my heritage, of the language that I speak. In my accented voice, you hear I'm from the East and I'm from the West. So I cannot pretend to be something else. It was really interesting because, when the announcement was made that I was the first British chef on Netflix, Chef's Table, which has had 35 chefs and never had anyone from Britain, I waited for the backlash from, the right wing, the trolls on keyboards on Twitter. It's been 2 years saying, oh, you're not very British. You don't sound very British. Not a single person put out a troll. Not a single person questioned my right to be called British and my right to be the first British. This is because I'm so deeply rooted in who I am that, you can't knock me over by calling me names. You don't throw stones at me. There's this difference. I think that, women like Kamala Harris, who will go on and do something, understand where their roots are. If you don't, then you're nothing. You just drift. And the thing is that you're from neither here nor there. We have a saying in India, about, a dog who's neither here nor there. I don't want to say the Hindi thing because I'm not sure how good everyone's Hindi is. But dhobi ka kutta, na thal ka, na ghat ka. So, you don't belong to either place. That's a kind of really risky place to fall. You fall between two stools. So I think that she hopefully, she will not fall between two stools.
Yeah, no, beautiful put, Asma. Go on, Tammy, you're about to say something.
No, I was just going to say, after that speech, I think Boris needs to move over and we need a proper Prime Minister. 100%. That was brilliant. And I totally agree with what she's saying. Yeah. I totally agree. I think it is about, staying true to your roots and your identity and your culture. And if you can do that, then yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was very eloquently put, Asma. But Shigufta, if I come to you, this tokenism or this kind of tick box exercise where you try to have diversity as well as address those ideas of inclusion, is that an opportunity that we need to take advantage of, especially if we are sidelined or overlooked?
Absolutely, and often I echo what Asma has just said. Often I sit in a room and I'm the only brown person in that room. I'm not the only female. Often when I'm in meetings, I often wonder where all the men have disappeared to, because in a lot of meetings, it is very heavily orientated by females, but often I'm the only brown female in the room. And if I was given the opportunity, like Asma just said, you're invited on a panel or you're given the opportunity to go and speak at an event and you are the only brown person at that event, I, like Asma just said, often feel that, am I ticking a box there? And is that what my purpose is? But I think positive discrimination, as I would call it, can be used as an advantage and should be used as an advantage. And it gives you an opportunity to be able to vocalize your viewpoints and your point of view. And like Asma just said, if you believe that you can make a difference by being a positive role model for your community and project that positive role model to the rest of the public who are watching this or watching other events or attending other events, then that is something that you can do and make a difference. So I think you can take advantage of it. And if you're given an opportunity, you should grasp it and utilize it to the best of your ability.
That's great. And Siema, obviously, you have a leadership role as a GP partner as well. And how do you actually relate leadership and being a female in the workplace?
I think with my workplace, I became senior partner probably about 4 weeks, September the 3rd. Prior to that, the senior partner was a male. So I think there has been kind of like a shift in the way that things are done. He was a fantastic leader. He was, he's been senior partner for about more than 15 years. I've been there 15 years. But I think probably the way in which we lead, I probably have a different approach to him. And I don't know if that's a man-woman thing. I think he was very much, this is how we do it and that's it. Whereas I'm very much more, I try and involve the staff and bring them along on the change with me, if that makes sense, to try and involve them more. And I don't know if men and women have different leadership styles, but I feel like we probably do, and we bring something different. The other partner I've got at work is a male, and I think between us, again, he's very much, let's just do this and that's it, whereas my style is different. And I think it's nice to have the mix of us both in order for it to work. But yeah, I think there is a difference in leadership styles where depending on whether it's a man or a woman, to be honest. And I'd be interesting to hear what Asma thinks, because of course she leads a team of women. So does it, how does that, do you have more of, say, perhaps more of a, I'm not stereotyping how men lead, but more of a different type of way in which you lead because you've got a team of women, or are you all very similar, or how does it work?
I think it's a really interesting comparison, because the thing is, I've worked with men and women, and now I work only with women. I think there are women who, unfortunately, because the idea of success is a very male idea of success. I have unfortunately seen a lot of women, especially in the legal world, who throw away the ladder. So older women are very, very vindictive and pick on younger women when they're coming up and progressing up. So it's not that just women leaders are compassionate, are collaborators, are cooperative. I think that this is something that I have not seen everywhere. I think the biggest thing is that for me, I lead a team of people whose shoulders I stand on. So these are the women who started cooking from my house. I am everything I am because of them. And I feel such sense of pride because I saw them, many of them came from very abused backgrounds, very deprived financially and struggling. And this power that they radiate now, I feel that, my greatest success, everything set aside, is to have seen and watched their journey become powerful. And this is what gives my, whatever leadership, it kind of feeds my leadership skills. I learn from watching them and seeing that I can transform people's lives. This is what gives me joy. And this is what makes me feel I could say that I'm a good leader, because I know I broke the chains of these women, the chains they didn't even know that they were tied down by. And this is a very significant thing. So I think that, Trini, it is a personality thing, but I do think that women, every woman I've come across in my business, they tend to be more accepting of other views, are willing to be more collaborative. And I think that there is a very, unfortunately, a very strong testosterone-driven male idea in my industry, in restaurants, I think fueled by, seeing shouty white male chefs shouting at people who are, junior to them in some ways in the restaurant, either, younger, female, struggling to kind of catch up. This kind of arrogance is celebrated only in my industry. If that man in that kitchen physically touched a woman and was abusive and did this outside the kitchen, as a lawyer, I can tell you he'd be in jail. But somehow in my industry, in a kitchen, leadership is seen as so great that you're the great chef, that you can throw a hot, pan across the kitchen. You can be abusive, you can be racially abusive, you can sexually harass a woman, still keep your job. So the thing is that it's really strange how people see leaders in my industry. And I was absolutely determined. This was going to be the way that my journey ended. I'm not willing to die. I will not give up till I see in my lifetime women being there on the table, making decisions. And a man who abuses women in kitchens, who's abusive and aggressive, he loses his job and not her. This is what I want to do. And so the thing is that, I'm driven by other things. I think women are often driven by a bigger picture. So, and I think, of course, maybe I'm biased, but I just think that, a lot of women I have met have dreams beyond their own personal dreams, that they get joy from other people's success as well. I have not met that many men like this. I'm sure they exist. Maybe I just haven't met them.
I'm happy at your success. I just want to say, I'm happy at your success.
Yeah.
we're slightly scared of you as well, though.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
I think the celebrity, not the media, but I think, there is a particular shouty chef who has made quite, made a personality. And I think that's what you kind of, I don't know, I think that's what I relate to chefs. Like if I go out for a meal and there's a kitchen, I'm almost waiting for the chef to start shouting and, shouting orders and to the sous chef and everything. But I think that's because that's what's portrayed on our screens, isn't it? And that's what we see. So yes, I would welcome an invite to your kitchen, Asma, to just see what happens. Yeah.
Please come.
Yeah.
I think you're fishing for a meal, Siema.
Yeah. I'm fishing for some. Yeah, definitely.
I'm on to you there.
I think women also I like to mentor, because as you said, I think it depends. If I've managed to climb the ladder, I'm not going to pull the ladder up behind me. The whole point is to help others climb that ladder. And I think your leadership style has to also lend itself to some mentorship as well, to help others. And you can't really be a mentor if you're kind of doing this very much a controlling, commanding kind of leadership. So yeah, I think that was what I wanted to add to what Asma said.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think my leadership style is I would call it a coaching leadership style, where you coach your fellow workers to move up in the organization. And certainly in my organization, everybody that's moved on to team leaders, supervisors, managers roles have all been from the organization. We have developed them and worked with them to help them achieve that. And that takes time, it takes time and takes energy to invest in that. So I completely agree with both of you there, that maybe the leadership styles are different. There's more, I think, empathy, compassion, and certainly in an organization that I work in, where there's predominantly women, we've got some male employees as well, but 90% of the organization is female only. People have got childcare issues, people have got school runs, so there's a lot of flexibility. If you've got children to drop off, you can join and come at 9:30 after you've done the school run. You can work later, you can leave earlier and start earlier. So there's a lot of flexibility around how we operate in my workplace, to try and incorporate people's circumstances and lives, basically.
I think the empathy though shouldn't be confused with us being not able to be firm when we need to be. No. I think many people think sometimes initially, because you're compassionate and you're more empathetic towards, they think, well, she won't have the ability to be firm. And I think sometimes initially it comes as quite a surprise when you first put your foot down, that, oh, she has got that side to her as well. So I think we're able to, as women, poor men on this show, we're able to have the best of both. We can be empathetic and also be the firm, commanding type when we need to be as well.
Well, we have that disciplinarian sort of in our homes, don't we, as mums? So I think it's almost that sort of thing that you reward good behaviour, you try and change bad behavior and you sort of instantly apply that in the workplace. So people are given opportunities to develop and change. But like you said, Siema, if people are not willing to do that, then yes, you need to be firm.
Just want to say there's loads of people watching, so thank you again. Please do ask questions. We will try to pose them to our esteemed guests. So please continue to interact if you can. Shigufta, I did want to ask, just following about the issue about leadership or lack of leadership from a female perspective. If you look at the Fortune 500 companies, you've probably heard the argument, and the same applies to the other guests, that a lot of the individuals in those kind of leadership positions are predominantly men. Is it just about those men being tyrants and not allowing women to progress onto the ladder, or do women actually have other needs which are very different to men? As you said, success is defined in different ways depending on your gender, perhaps.
I think it depends in a lot of those companies that you've just mentioned. I think it depends on the industry and the opportunities that are given to women to either join that industry or to progress in that industry. So certainly there are a lot of women in managers' roles, but in the senior management teams or in the heads of organizations, in those sort of roles, it's still predominantly in the industries that you're talking about. It's still predominantly men, and I think it's the lack of opportunities that is an issue. So if you are in a position where you can support people, as Asma and Siema just said, about not pull the ladder up after yourself, but actually give somebody a helping hand and help them along as well, then that is something that women should be doing. And if they're not doing, shame on them for not doing that.
Yeah, I think there is the idea that men should run half the homes and women should run half the companies, isn't it? Whether that translates to reality, time will tell. But I guess just following on the female topic, Siema, and I guess, is this closely related to feminism? And has there been a kind of complications of the word feminism in society?
I'm not a big fan of the word feminism. I don't really see myself as a feminist as such. I feel like, to be honest, I just feel like, okay, so if I was to say to you, explain what is a feminist? If I was to throw that back at you, you tell me what you think a feminist is.
A feminist is, I'd probably say, someone who feels nice on Siema.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have done my reading on this one.
Yeah, there you go. So for him, because I just dislike that word so much. It drives me mad because I just think, what is feminist? And I think it's been tarnished in a way as well as time's gone on. I think, go on.
I guess it's that feel that when I hear the word feminist, it feels as though the woman or the female has more rights or more qualifications or more abilities and should be offered a greater proportion rather than equality. That's what it feels like.
Can I just say I believe very strongly in feminism, so I would say very proudly that I'm a feminist.
What is a feminist though, Shigufta? If I said to you,
if you listen to some of the speeches that Obama did, he says very proudly that he's a feminist. It's about equality. So it's about equality, the same rights for women as there are for men, and a world that is equal for both. That to me is what feminism is. But people have, I think, manipulated the word, or it's a word that's been hijacked by people who are quite, I think, extreme in their views. But to me, that's what it means. It means about
equality for me. Yeah. So it's about equality, but I do feel like it has been tarnished or hijacked is a better way to put it, and people are almost using it in a way for a gain which may not necessarily be correct or true, if that makes sense. I think, yes, I'm all for equality, and women should be recognized and should be treated as equal, and they should have the same opportunities, whether it's in pay or whatever it is. But I think there are some people, men and women, who have used or manipulated the word feminist for their own personal gain, and I think that's where I feel it's I don't like the word being used, if that makes some sense at all to anyone.
Asma, can I draw you in at this stage? Obviously, you have the unique value on the panel of running an all-female kitchen. In a way, you've eliminated any problems because you've removed all the men from the workplace. Is that one way of solving it, or having all-female shortlist, for example?
No. The reason I have an all-female kitchen is not because I set out to create one. I needed women to be able to cook in my kitchen who cook like me, by andas and, because just look at it. In every kitchen you go to in South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, it is a woman cooking in the kitchen. In every restaurant kitchen you go to, it's a man. So the thing is that these boys didn't learn how to cook from their mothers and nannies and dadis and khalas, okay? They learned in culinary school. When you look at all the chefs in high-end London restaurants here, they all went to the same culinary school, and they're all from Taj or Oberoi's hotel. There's a sameness in the way that they were trained. They learned to cook production line cooking. Have you seen the size of the menus that you have in most restaurants? It's a very different culture. I hired a team of women to work with me because they got it. So it wasn't that I was trying to play politics. I actually hired the most capable, the most skilled for the kind of work I wanted. They happen to be all women. They happen to be older women. The average age of woman cooking in my kitchen is 50. But going back to this feminism thing, I think there is one more angle as well to this, that there is a kind of fear that I always have when I listen to white feminists, that they don't understand the aspirations of women who are not white. Because I go into rooms where people are talking about feminism and how important it is for women to be treated equal. And then everybody gasps because I say, I don't drink alcohol. And then, of course, this whole thing, do you eat pork? Are you a devout Muslim? But you don't look like a Muslim. You don't have a hijab. And all of this, within seconds, the conversation breaks down to this. I have no fear saying this to everybody. I turn around and tell them, wow, you guys, do you understand how shallow you sound? And there is silence and they're embarrassed. I won't let it pass. This is the problem. So I understand what's happened is that, completely, I believe that, it is about equality. It is about equality, but it's about respect. You respect me as a woman first, and then we'll talk about all the other things. It is when there is no respect, and there's no respect for my culture and the color of my skin and my accent and my Muslim name, I have issues. So the problem is that, a lot of feminist issues don't ring a bell with me. And a lot of issues, like Black Lives Matter, mattered to me a lot. I grew up in India in a very polarized society where people of lower caste were beaten to death. And today in India, people are lynched for what they eat. So these are issues that are very powerful for me, the othering of people. So where feminism comes in, you don't other people. You treat them on par with you, whether they're women or they're men. This is very important. This is the core of what I believe should be feminism about. It is not, because unfortunately there's a shrill, it's a bit like, I know I'm probably going to freak out a lot of people by saying this, but because I'm from, the food industry, I can say. But, there is a shrill minority, clean eating, the vegans. I personally have I tell everybody, for God's sake, I come from a country where people die of hunger. I should say, everyone say, Alhamdulillah, I eat. How should it matter to you whether you are eating anything? It is a privilege to eat. And I think feminism is also that, to live, to breathe, to be free, to live without violence, to live without fear, and without the fear of your children going to sleep hungry. How many of us have gone through this? There are much bigger issues in life. We need to fight for all women beyond ourselves, beyond this petty little pool in which we talk about power and how it works in this circle. We are a representative of, and I always say this to everyone, because I have this short time when, I'm on stage and people, tell me, you're the first this and the first that. The only reason I'm excited that I'm on stage is because I'm speaking for those women who will never get on stage. When I stand there and the spotlight hits me, I speak for those who will not speak. I speak for those who will never get on stage. So I think that even for feminists, it's very, very important that you talk about everybody, not just, you talk within yourself. It's an echo room. Basically,
I think,
And that's
I think for feminists, the experience, so some of the experience that I've had is that some feminists have a very firm belief of what they feel a woman should be like. I'll give you an example, right? So when feminists will be very, very forthright in saying that women should have the right to choose what they wish to wear, and it's a woman's right and everything. But the same women, feminists, will also say, well, a woman wearing a niqab is oppressed, and this is wrong, and she shouldn't be wearing a niqab because it doesn't fit their idea of what they feel a woman should be like. And I think this is where I get confused with feminists, because it should be allowing the woman to be what she wants to be, whatever it is, even if it doesn't fit what you believe or what you think. And I think that's for me where I struggle a lot. So that's not equality for me. That's kind of saying, well, I expect you to be a certain way, and then that's feminism. But for me, it's about equality. Whether that woman wants to wear nothing or whether she wants to wear a niqab, that's her right. But you can't be on one side of the fence and say I'm a feminist, and then when it swings the other way, say I don't agree with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's what I was trying to say before, but didn't do it particularly well. But yeah.
No, it's good. Asma, you touched on a topic that will probably be of interest, I hope, to all of us, and that is food. We obviously know you with your channel in terms of actually the production of food and Netflix, and I'm sure all of us have an opinion on healthy eating and just food. Can you tell us a little bit about Asma in terms of Darjeeling Express and the foods you bring out? Because you did mention something not contentious but interesting, that many of the male chefs are from cookery schools, and I understand that, whereas females, they learn from their parents, which is an interesting one. I'm not sure everyone would have thought of that. Can you tell us how that actually comes out in the actual nutritional value, perhaps, of your food, or enjoyment, or just what you experience you're trying to give to people who eat with you?
The thing is that, I'm not criticizing male chefs. I think that, not everybody has gone through culinary school. But I think there is people who have grown up watching their parents and, grandparents cook, or, in a kind of usually very female dominated kitchen. My mother comes from Bengal, and, we have a vegetable dish we make with the peels of the vegetable, the pumpkin and the courgette, potato peels. This is kind of a dish that is cooked. So even the peels are not thrown away. The West, like yoga and lots of other things, I can give you a whole long list, has discovered things much later. The idea of no waste in the kitchen, that you used everything fully, that you didn't throw away food. Mm-hmm. I mean, our mothers and grandmothers never threw away food. They ate seasonally. That is absolutely, I remember this whole thing of makke ka roti, sarson ka saag. You waited for winter. Gajar ka halwa was, a winter treat. You waited for these things that came. You didn't eat food out of season. This is our heritage. And this is what, even in this country, in my restaurant, I don't make a huge song and dance about this, but basically, I don't fly down any vegetables from India, Africa, Pakistan at all. You will not find bhindi and jackfruit in my restaurant. Everything is British. Everything is organic. Because I think this is really important. This, and I don't want to get into this brigade of, what is healthy, what is seasonal. But we change our menu every 3 months, and it is all seasonal. The furthest we go to get our vegetables is Spain, because British, obviously, weather is mashallah. You can't grow any herbs and no aubergine, so it has to come from there. I have to have bengan ka bharta on my menu. So, but the thing is, seriously, the irresponsibility of, flying down food, the air miles, there's no air miles on my menu. Very reduced. I don't fly down anything. And I'm very political about this, but I keep it very low-key. People who see my menu can pick up that everything is British. I named the farm where I get the beetroot from. And it's not that I'm compromising. Aloo gobi matar, all British ingredients. My beetroot chop, the pumpkin that we have, we've got lots of beautiful Bengali, vegetables with pumpkin. So I think that, we have always made do. Our mothers and grandmothers were, what we call jagaru. They would create the most amazing meals with very simple things. And, when India had this, demonetization, there were sacks of notes below, housewives' beds. Guess where that came from? That was the money they saved on the bazaar money. So women are just so good. My women in the kitchen will argue with me that don't buy this, don't buy that. We'll make do with this, we'll make do with that. And they're just driven by this whole idea of not wasting. We have all seen hunger. None of us throw away things. But this idea of a big culinary school, stainless steel empire, where you have everything, the wastage is shocking. So the healthy food comes from the fact that you eat what you will actually enjoy and what is healthy and what is seasonal.
Wow. Shigufta, your thoughts on health and food in your daily life?
Do you know what? It's music to my ears what Asma's saying, because I completely agree with what you're saying. You should eat things in season because you will enjoy them so much more than eating out of season. And certainly I completely agree with you around the fact that, buy local and know what you're buying. Support your local independent markets, etc. So that's what I do, and I think most Asian people do that, not because they do it consciously, but because we shop at our local butchers and we shop at our local grocers. So we're used to buying from our local shops, which I think a lot of people have sort of moved away from and started buying from supermarkets. So I'm not saying I don't go to a supermarket, but all the meat and veg is bought locally, really, in local shops. So that's, I think, is fantastic. And I love the idea of the menu changing with the seasons. And I think you should shout about that, Asma, because that is something which people are so proudly talking about and advertising. So if you're doing it, you should really promote that. I think that'd be fantastic to do.
And Siema, if
I have enough. I'm rattling enough cages at the moment. I don't want to get into this one, but I just feel very proud, and I want to tell people, our mothers and grandmothers were unsung heroes, absolute rock stars, that generation that has died and gone to their graves, they left a legacy of incredible food. And, I am their face of every woman who never got recognized for the food they cook, but the love with which they cook their food. And, this is why it's tough being in this industry. It's hard work. But I'm motivated. Passion comes just from the idea I know that I'm telling the story of our food. I'm bringing honor back to my women.
Oh, thank you, Asma.
That's honestly, that sounds amazing, and the passion that you're talking with just really comes across.
If she talks with that much passion, imagine the passion in that cooking. That's all I can say.
But you're right. It's and I'm assuming Fahim is probably quite similar to me in that respect, because I think we've grown up seeing what Mum's doing in the kitchen and very much immerse ourselves, and I think that's probably carried on. You've probably seen some of our photos that we've made of food and things like that. So I think the importance of fresh produce, the importance of a balanced meal, as well as cultural heritage. I think we've tried to continue that. Time will tell how long we can continue that, but I guess I want to try and bring Siema into this discussion. So, and from a doctor's perspective, Siema, so people talk about healthy diet, but what kind of tips or guidance do you try to impart on your patients? And I guess how do we tackle obesity? Because ultimately that's another pandemic, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I work in inner city Manchester, so I have a lot of patients from ethnic minority backgrounds, and diabetes is one of our biggest struggles. And a lot of my patients are, I have to say, overweight. And when you ask patients, do you eat healthy? Inevitably, the answer is always going to be yes. But it's only when you pick away and ask, well, what did you eat for breakfast? Or tell me exactly what you've eaten today during the day. And you realize that, people aren't eating particularly healthy. They're struggling to lose weight. At the moment, there's so many fads out there about losing weight, drink apple cider vinegar and the weight will fall off, or, drink grapefruit juice in the morning and the weight will, and there's just so much information out there. I think where I work, there is a lot of deprivation socioeconomically. So people do struggle with perhaps being able to buy, certain produce or cook how they want. And I think fast food is cheaper, it's easier when you've got a busy, hectic family life, and people do opt for fast food as well. So I think a lot of the discussions recently I've been having with patients is about how to lose weight but lose it sensibly over a longer period of time, rather than these quick diets that don't necessarily work. And I think some of the some of the discussions we've had recently is around, I can never say this, but it's intermittent fasting. I'm going to call it IF. And there's different types. I don't know if you guys have heard of IF and the different types. So there's like the 16-8. It took me a while to work out that the 16 hours is the fasting bit and not the eating bit. And the 8 hours is the eating bit. So I suppose essentially you could do it where you don't eat for 4 hours from waking and 4 hours before going to bed. That's one way of looking at it. So the 16-8 is quite popular, and apparently it works really, really well. I recently downloaded my FitnessPal app, you know, to try and count the calories. But when you're eating like aloo gosht and, you know, ghee tori and things like that, that's courgette, you know, in a salad, you can't find it on my FitnessPal app. So it makes it really difficult to count your calories when you're having like traditional Asian food. And then there is, I think it's called the Eat Stop Eat, where for 24 hours you don't eat from one dinner time to another dinner time. And then lastly, there's a 5-2, which is basically on 2 days you restrict your calories to about 500-600 calories. So there's lots of things out there. But you know what I always say to patients? Instead of, you can try this, but people find it really difficult to stick to, or just eliminate. So for example, if you drink a lot of fizzy drinks and you eat a lot of sweet things and you like your takeouts, you can't stop everything at once. It's impossible. It really is. And it, you know, and that's personally speaking as well. Why don't you stop your fizzy drinks first and just leave it at that? Carry on with everything else. And then after a few weeks, add in something else and stop the cakes. And then after a few weeks, add in stopping the biscuit. So it's a gradual thing so that it's easier to stick to. The change isn't so overwhelming and you're not ending up craving for that, you know, that curly whirly that you couldn't eat. So I think it's just I have these conversations so often that, you know, about the healthy eating and about just eating sensibly and portion control. It's a day in and day out conversation. I just don't know how else we're going to tackle it. Sorry, I've taught loads there on diets. And
so I actually thought the 16-8 was 16 was you know, when you're awake.
Eating.
And 8
oh, right, yeah.
So,
it took me a while to work that one out.
Yeah.
I've actually tried that 16-8, and I can do 14 hours. After 14 hours, I start flagging I need to eat something. But there are so many groups out there, support groups out there that you can join, and people who have done the 16-8 or the other one that Siema mentioned, the 24-hour one, which I think I'd take my hat off to them for not eating for 24 hours and just eating one meal in 24 hours. The weight loss has been significant for people who have tried it and done it. But I found when I've done I tried to do the 16-8 and got up to 14 or 15 hours, which I try and do every day, what I found is, I don't know about the weight loss, but I found myself to be more energetic. I felt better in myself as a person. I've got more energy than when I've been eating, when I've not been doing it. So I think there is, because it makes you control yourself and give you some sort of self-control. So after 7 o'clock in the evening, if you start it, you're not then snacking. So when you're watching TV, you're not sat there nibbling on some dal mot or something. You're not that's it. You've had your meal at 7 o'clock, 7:30, and then you're not eating till breakfast the next day, and you're controlling yourself. So I think there is some merit in it because it's a bit of self-control. But on my FitnessPal, Siema, you can add your recipes. So I have tried doing that. So you can put your proportion in of your 1 cup of oil and your 4 potatoes and your half a kilo of meat, and put the whole recipe in, and then it proportions it to you. So you can try doing that. It takes a bit of time.
I'm a bit naughty though, because if I've eaten, say, a doner kebab or something ridiculous, I just don't put it in. I just omit things that I don't want to put in, which defeats the whole point.
It does.
It does.
It
yeah.
does.
Asma, in terms of the food that you make, obviously what we eat, you know, there's a saying, you know, you are what you eat, or maybe the foods that you eat can actually influence your mood and how your state of mind. I mean, do you actually put much thinking into that in the food that you create?
I think for us, you know, the pretty much all the things that we cook in the restaurant are straightforward. All the recipes from my mother, and it's our home style cooking. We kind of have a very, very small menu, And this way people pick the kind of foods that are meant to be eaten together. We are not a meat and two veg tradition. So, this idea that, you eat this one piece of meat and that's the end of the story, it doesn't work that way. We do mix our food. And, this whole idea of Ayurveda, where you have different kind of flavors, all the flavor palettes have to go through. So astringent and bitter and sweet and all of that is very, very important. So for me, I just stick to what I know is how, things that have always been eaten together go very well. There's a balance in the spicing. There's a balance in the flavors. And I think that, you don't need to eat a huge amount of it because there's so much, layering in that spicing that it can satisfy you by just, and, eating that amount of really well-made food. And I think that's what we focus on. We try and focus on, really putting a lot of patience into the way we cook. We don't rush it. And we don't thicken things with cream and milk. Of course, my mother comes from Bengal where, there are hardly any cows and, we don't put milk and cream on anything. That's all Punjabis. We don't put, we don't have, paneer or malai or anything. So we, it's so hot and humid. Our food is very regional and it's very, very light. I think the problem is, we become very badnaam because of the kind of food that is sold in Indian restaurants. But God knows why they made it also creamy and thick. You won't survive in India or Pakistan in that kind of weather, eating this kind of food. Actually, our food is very healthy. We have, our food has just been dragged through the mud and has been kind of transformed and people think this is what Indian food is. I always argue that it is not. It's just looking at Bengal, it's 40 degrees. We don't have a winter. It is 100% humidity. What food can you eat that will make you survive that kind of heat? It's all very light, very beautifully made food. But somehow people think we all eat, thick butter chicken every day. We won't live if we do that.
Do you know, Fahim, you're saying about moods, right? I can imagine that if you go to Asma's restaurant, that it'll be very nostalgic, I think. It'll bring you back to real, it'll remind you of your mum or your nanny or your dad, you know what I mean? Like that proper home cooked food. Yeah. Not our current East meets West kind of twist on you. Yeah.
But I guess if we think about the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously there's a lot of talk about vitamin D, isn't there? And if we look at our diet, it's fair to say we probably don't eat that much fortified foods like Weetabix or other things that have a lot of additional vitamins added. Is our diet the issue, or is there something else? Because I guess the answer is still there to be found, isn't there?
Well, we don't have much sun here, do we? We do live in England, and I suppose most of the sun, the vitamin D is usually absorption, isn't it, through your skin from the sun. And living in England, that is highly unlikely. I mean, there are, like you said, there are fortified cereals like Cheerios and Weetabix and things. But I mean, for my kids, I supplement them, and I do with patients as well. For children up to the age of 5, we do recommend supplements. But I think there are some foods. Is it oily fish and like liver and things? And I bet egg yolks probably as well will have vitamin D in. But I think mostly we get it through supplements.
Yeah, things like salmon, sardines. It doesn't really feature a great deal in terms of diet, especially from South India. That's where I am. You'll get your vegetarian meals, you'll get your masala dosa and everything else. Really good spicy food. But yeah, so it's just, I guess, food for thought, really.
Yeah, I think the Daily Mail recently ran an article saying that the government were going to provide supplements, vitamin D supplements. I'm not entirely sure of the dose, because I think, the dose would have to be a reasonable amount. I know that obviously over the years things have changed. Vitamin D was something that wasn't really talked about. I know when I first started as a doctor, it wasn't even something you really tested for. Whereas now it's, where I work, where there's a lot of a huge Asian population, lots of the ladies are covered up, obviously because they dress modestly, and so their sunlight absorption is poor, and they do tend to be lacking. A lot of women are lacking vitamin D. So we do start testing for it. It's got a lot more recognition recently. I think people are more aware of it. The supplements flew off the shelves, I think, at the start of the COVID epidemic, because there was some talk about, you know, if your vitamin D is low, would you potentially suffer higher, you know, worse consequences of the virus? And I think people have become a lot more au fait about it, and actually the doses as well. So, I mean, you know, obviously you'd have to consult your doctor first, but I think a reasonable dose would be at least 1,000 micrograms daily. But again, you'd have to speak to your doctor first to check you haven't got any calcium or renal problems. But a sufficient dose is needed, I think, if you are from certain communities.
Shigufta, I know we're running out of time, and I did want you to touch up on the concept of domestic violence and abuse, just because we're in another lockdown. The research tells us that more than 40,000 contacts were made to the National Domestic Abuse Helpline during the first 3 months of the actual lockdown, and mostly by women seeking help. And the charity Refuge, which runs the National Helpline, said in June that calls and contacts were nearly 80% higher than usual. Quite staggering figures there. We're in another lockdown. Domestic violence is inevitable, perhaps, that it may go up again. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do at the Wish Centre, and if there's any actual campaigns that are going on at the moment?
Yeah, so there is a campaign coming up. It's the 16 days of action, starting from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. And we are running a virtual event on that day, so people can log on and join that virtual event. And I'll give you the details afterwards, Fahim, so you can put them on the site. But with COVID, the first lockdown, we saw a massive decline in numbers in the first 3 weeks of COVID, which really alarmed us and alarmed, I think, domestic abuse organisations across the UK, because we were wondering, you know, people obviously in lockdown or with their partners maybe didn't have the opportunity to get help and support. And certainly with this lockdown coming up, you know, this might happen again, but I think we are better prepared than we were last time. There have been so many messages that have been sent out to people. Helpline numbers have been made available. There have been national campaigns and local campaigns and regional campaigns going on. But ultimately, a message that I will give to people, if they are worried about themselves or a friend or a family member, is that there is so much help and support available. And lockdown does not mean that you cannot leave your home. You know, you are asked to stay at home from the government, but not if you're suffering domestic abuse. So you can still contact your police, you can still contact your local domestic abuse services, you can contact your local council, you know, the housing department, anywhere really, where you can contact a practitioner for support, and they will assist you and support you. And if you need refuge accommodation, they will move you. So refuges are taking people in. We've taken numerous, you know, applications, referrals in during lockdown, and we continue to do so. So there is help and support available. Please don't suffer in silence. Get help.
Can I just add to that GP practices are open. We are actually open, despite what the media might say. So if you are struggling, you can ring us and we can get you into the practice if we need to. We can speak to you face to face. We're able to do whatever needs to be done to help you. So please, I mean, we've seen an increase as well. So just, we are open. We are here for the women and men as well.
Mm.
Great.
That's really good to know as well, actually, because that could be a safe point of contact for people to ring their GP and via the GP get help and support. Yeah.
I'm mindful we're nearly dwindling out of time, so we've got about 30 seconds. So I'm going to ask our guests to share their 3 tips. I know we've covered a huge array of topics, but what would you like to share with the audience? I'll start with yourself, Asma.
I think I really want all women to look into their inner soul, because I think that too many of us live the lives that others expect us to live. So this is the one thing that I really want, which is all 3 things put together, which is that this is your life. Every dawn that comes is a gift to you. Please do not live the life that others say you should live. It is very, very important for women and for men. Live the life that you want. Be who you want. I mean, I know everyone was so happy when I got my PhD in law. I didn't do law because I love to cook. And every day I'm so grateful I took that choice. And I look forward to every morning because of that. I don't dread going to work. because I chose my path.
That's great, fantastic. Shigufta, if I come to yourself.
Can I just say I'll go with what Asma's just said. I don't think in all honesty I can beat that. No, for me, I think just sticking on the domestic abuse theme, that if you are concerned about anybody, a friend or a family member, then please have a look at either the websites that we have, which is the Wish Centre, or other websites, or Women's Aid, etc. websites, and seek help and support. Because if you are suffering domestic abuse, you're not on your own. So I think that would just give that as a key message.
Great, thank you, Shigufta. And Siema?
Obviously serious ones, ring your GP if you are in trouble at all when it comes to domestic violence. Please don't be that woman that lifts the ladder after you've climbed it. Yeah, honestly, please, that's just not needed. Can someone please add some curries to the MyFitnessPal app, because that would help me out greatly. And finally, you need to get to Asma's restaurant in London. It's called the Darjeeling Express. Will that bag me a free table now?
Yes, it will.
There'll be a tab on that, Simon. It won't be unlimited food, you know.
Fantastic. So, Fahim, who do we have in store for next week?
Excellent. So we've got sexual health consultants next week. So we'll be talking all about contraception, sexually transmitted infections, and seeking sexual health advice. So we have Dr. Tina Dwivedi, who is a consultant in contraception and reproductive health at Blackpool Teaching Hospitals NHS Trust. And we also have a consultant in sexual health and HIV, Dr. Chitra Babu, as well. So really looking forward to hearing both of their experiences. An all-woman panel again. See, this isn't just a one-off.
Absolutely. And yeah, thanks again, Siema, Asma, and Shigufta, for sharing your Tuesday evening. It's been fascinating, and me and Fahim have certainly learned a lot. Not that we didn't know before, but certainly we value the role of women a great deal more. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you.